The garage door opened at 3:17 a.m. I watched from the dark kitchen as Ryan's BMW rolled in, headlights sweeping across the walls. He didn't know I was awake. He didn't know I'd found the hotel receipt in his suit pocket, the one with the charge for champagne and a king-size bed. He killed the engine and sat there for a full minute, staring at his phone, smiling at the screen. I gripped the counter and whispered to myself, by sunrise, he'll wish he never came home. My name is Lauren, and for the last 7 years, I have been invisible. Not in the way that means no one sees me. My kids see me, my neighbors see me, the cashier at the grocery store sees me every Tuesday and Thursday. But invisible in the way that matters, invisible to my husband. Ryan made his first million when our oldest Maddie was 2. He made his second when the twins, Cole and Emma, started preschool. By the time we bought this house, the one with the circular driveway and the kitchen island big enough to feed a small army, Ryan had stopped seeing me altogether. I was the background infrastructure of his life, the person who made sure the kids were fed, the laundry was done, the school forms were signed, the dog was walked, the house was clean, the groceries were stocked, the birthdays were remembered, the holidays were planned, the in-laws were managed, the teachers were thanked, the neighbors were appeased. I was the scaffolding that held up his empire, and scaffolding, by definition, is not meant to be looked at. I didn't mind at first. I told myself it was a partnership. He built the fortune, I built the family. He brought home the money. I made sure it bought something worth having. When he worked late, I handled bedtime alone. When he traveled for business, I held down the fort. When he forgot our anniversary, I told myself he was stressed, he was busy, he was building a future for all of us. I believed it because I had to believe it. The alternative was too painful to consider. The morning everything changed started like any other. I woke at 6 a.m. to Emma crying from her room. She'd had a nightmare about monsters under the bed. I soothed her, tucked her back in, and went downstairs to start coffee. By 6:30, Maddie was up, arguing with Cole about who got to use the bathroom first. By 7, I had made breakfast, packed lunches, signed a permission slip, found Emma's missing shoe, and mediated a dispute about a broken toy. Ryan came down at 7:15, freshly showered, smelling like expensive cologne, wearing a suit I'd picked up from the dry cleaner 2 days earlier. He kissed my cheek, a reflex, nothing more, grabbed his coffee, and walked out the door. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't ask about the kids. He didn't notice the dark circles under my eyes, or the way I'd been moving slower lately, tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. That afternoon, I took the kids to the park. While they played, I sat on a bench and scrolled through my phone. A notification popped up. Our credit card statement was available. I almost didn't open it. Ryan handled the finances, or at least he handled the parts that mattered. I had a card for groceries, for kids' clothes, for household expenses. I never looked at the statements because I trusted him. He was the responsible one, the provider, the man who had given us this life. Why would I question him? But something made me click. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was the faint whisper of intuition that had been growing louder over the past few months, the one I'd been ignoring because listening meant admitting something was wrong. I opened the statement and started scrolling. Groceries, Target, the pediatrician, Amazon, normal, boring. Then I saw it, a charge for $847 at the Grand Hampton Hotel dated 3 weeks earlier. I stared at the amount. The Grand Hampton was downtown, a fancy place with a rooftop bar and rooms that cost more than our mortgage payment. Ryan had told me he was working late that night. He'd texted me at 10 p.m. Still at the office, don't wait up. I'd gone to sleep alone as usual. I clicked on the charge details. It was itemized, room service, champagne, and a king suite. My stomach turned. I told myself there was an explanation. A business dinner, a client he needed to impress. But clients don't get charged to your personal card, and champagne for 2 doesn't get ordered for a meeting. I didn't confront him that night. I made dinner, helped with homework, gave baths, read stories, and tucked the kids in. I went to bed at 11 and lay there staring at the ceiling while the clock ticked toward midnight. Ryan came home at 1:30 a.m. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, the soft click of the bedroom door, the rustle of clothes as he undressed in the dark. He slid into bed beside me, smelling faintly of something floral and sweet. Perfume, not mine. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I lay there frozen as the truth settled over me like a weight I couldn't lift. He was cheating. He had been cheating, and I had been so invisible, so background, so safely assumed that he hadn't even bothered to hide it. The next morning, I waited until he left for work. Then I went through his closet, his drawers, his briefcase. I found the hotel receipt crumpled in the pocket of his suit pants. I found a credit card bill addressed to his office, with more charges. Dinner for two at an expensive restaurant, a jewelry store, a weekend at a resort 2 hours north. I found a receipt for flowers delivered to an address I didn't recognize. And I found a photograph, tucked into the lining of his briefcase, of a woman I'd never seen. She was young, maybe late 20s, with long blonde hair and a smile that looked rehearsed. On the back, in Ryan's handwriting, were the words, "Can't wait to see you again." I sat on the floor of his closet, surrounded by evidence of his betrayal, and I cried. Not because I was sad, though I was deeply, achingly sad. I cried because I was angry. Angry at myself for being so blind. Angry at him for making me into a fool. Angry at the life I'd built, the sacrifices I'd made, the years I'd given, all of it treated like it was nothing. I thought about the kids, Maddie, who adored her father, Cole, who wanted to be just like him, Emma, who still believed her daddy could fix anything. What would happen to them when this all came out? What would happen to me? I had no job, no degree I'd used in a decade, no savings of my own, no career, no contacts, no way to support myself, let alone 3 children. Ryan had built his empire, and I had built his home. Now the home was all I had, and it was built on sand. I wiped my face, stood up, and put everything back exactly where I found it. Then I went downstairs, made the kids lunch, and started planning. The first thing I did was open a private email account on a device Ryan didn't know about, an old laptop I'd kept from college, buried in the back of my closet. I used it to research. I read articles about divorce, about hidden assets, about what happens to stay-at-home mothers when their high-earning husbands leave them. The picture was grim. If I confronted him, if I filed for divorce, I would be at his mercy. He had the lawyers, the money, the connections. I had 3 kids and a decade of domestic labor that the law treated as worthless. But I also had something he didn't expect. Time. Ryan worked 80 hours a week. He traveled constantly. He was so confident in his control, so certain of his invisibility, that he never bothered to watch me. He never noticed when I started paying attention. I began small. I took photos of every document I could find, bank statements, tax returns, investment accounts, credit card bills. I learned that Ryan had several accounts I didn't know about, one in the Cayman Islands, one in Delaware, one under his company's name. I learned that he'd been transferring money out of our joint accounts for years, siphoning funds into places I couldn't reach. I learned that the house, the car, the furniture, everything I thought was ours, was actually in his name alone. He'd convinced me to sign papers years ago, explaining it was better for taxes, and I trusted him. I'd signed without reading. The rage that built inside me was cold and quiet. It didn't explode, it crystallized. I stopped crying. I stopped hoping. I started acting. I found a lawyer through a friend I trusted, a woman named Dana who'd been through her own divorce 5 years earlier. Dana recommended someone named Patricia Okonkwo, a family law attorney who specialized in representing financially dependent spouses against wealthy husbands. I met Patricia in her office, a nondescript building in a strip mall, far from the glass towers where Ryan's lawyers worked. She was sharp, no nonsense, and she didn't sugarcoat. "You're in a vulnerable position," she said after I'd laid out everything I'd found. "But you're also in a stronger one than most because you have evidence. Most women in your situation don't find out until it's too late. You found out early. That gives us options." She explained the process: discovery, depositions, asset tracing, forensic accounting. She explained that Ryan's hidden accounts could be uncovered, his transfers reversed, his bonuses and stock options included in the marital estate. She explained that because I had been a stay-at-home mother, I was entitled to spousal support, possibly for a long time. She explained that the court would consider the kid's best interests and that Ryan's affair could factor into custody if we could prove it impacted his judgment or parenting. But here's the thing, Patricia said, leaning forward. If we file now, he'll know. He'll have time to hide more, to fight, to make this ugly. You need to decide what you want. Do you want to punish him? Or do you want to walk away with enough to build a new life? I thought about it. I thought about the woman in the photograph, the perfume on his collar, the champagne in the King Suite. I thought about the years I'd given him, the children I'd raised, the home I'd built. I thought about the way he kissed my cheek without seeing me, the way he walked out the door every morning without a backward glance. I want both, I said. I want him to pay, and I want enough to never need him again. Patricia nodded slowly. Then we need a plan, and we need to be patient. Over the next 3 months, I became a different person. While Ryan was at work, while the kids were at school, I learned. I read every book I could find on finance, on divorce law, on forensic accounting. I took online courses in bookkeeping and personal finance. I started a spreadsheet documenting every expense, every transfer, every piece of evidence. I printed copies of everything and stored them in a safe deposit box at a bank Ryan didn't use. I also started watching him. Really watching. I noted his schedule, his habits, his moods. I noticed when he was late, when he was distracted, when he smelled like her. I noticed when he started coming home earlier, acting guilty, buying me flowers and apologizing for nothing. I accepted the flowers. I thanked him for the dinners. I smiled and kissed his cheek and went back to my spreadsheet. And I found her, the woman in the photograph. Her name was Chelsea. She was 28, a marketing coordinator at Ryan's company. She had an Instagram account full of photos from vacations, restaurants, and hotel rooms, some of which matched the dates on Ryan's credit card statements. She posted pictures of gifts he'd given her, jewelry and handbags, without ever showing his face. She had a private account, but I created a fake profile and followed her. I watched her life unfold in real time, the life that was built on the bones of mine. One night after the kids were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and looked at her photos. She was at a resort, the same one Ryan had charged to his card. She was wearing a bikini, smiling, holding a cocktail. In the background, I could see the edge of a man's arm, a watch I recognized. Ryan's watch, the one I'd given him for our 10th anniversary. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark for a long time. Then I went upstairs, climbed into bed beside my sleeping husband, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. The opportunity came in October. Ryan announced he had a business trip to New York, 4 days, meetings with investors. He told me on a Sunday night, packing his suitcase with the casual efficiency of a man who had done this 100 times. I asked the usual questions. What hotel? When will you be back? Should I expect any calls? He answered with the usual vagueness. The usual place, Friday night. I'll let you know. He kissed my forehead and went to bed. I stayed up, waiting. At 2 a.m. I went through his phone. I'd learned his passcode months ago, watching him type it in at dinner. He kept it on the nightstand while he slept. Close enough to grab, not close enough to hide. I took it into the bathroom, closed the door, and scrolled. The texts with Chelsea were open. They were explicit, detailed, full of plans. They were meeting in New York. They were staying at the same hotel, the one he'd told me was for investors. They had dinner reservations, show tickets, a whole itinerary of intimacy. I read every message, memorized every detail, and then I put the phone back exactly where I found it. The next morning, I kissed him goodbye and watched him drive away. Then I called Patricia. He's going to New York with her, I said. 4 days. I have the hotel name, the dates, the reservation numbers. Patricia was quiet for a moment. That's good. That's very good. But we need more than texts. We need proof that can't be disputed. Photos, video, something that shows them together in a compromising way. I thought about it. I thought about hiring a private investigator, but that cost money I didn't have access to without raising suspicion. I thought about going myself, but I couldn't leave the kids. Then I had an idea. His company has a security camera in the lobby, I said slowly, and Chelsea works there. If they leave together, if they're seen on camera. Patricia understood immediately. We can subpoena those records, but we need to know the exact dates and times, and we need to act fast before they're overwritten. I spent the next 3 days documenting everything. I printed the text, screenshotted Chelsea's Instagram, noted the flight numbers and hotel confirmation codes. I found an old friend from college who worked in IT and asked, hypothetically, how long companies kept security footage. He said most systems overwrite after 30 days. We had a window. On Friday, Ryan texted me a photo of the New York skyline from his hotel window. I texted back, "Looks beautiful. Hope the meetings are going well." He replied with a heart emoji. I saved the screenshot. On Sunday, he came home with a gift for me, a scarf, expensive, clearly chosen by someone else. I thanked him, wore it to dinner, and smiled. That night, I went through his suitcase while he showered. I found a receipt for dinner for two at a Michelin-starred restaurant, dated Friday night. I found a hotel key card with the room number on it. I found a receipt for a bottle of wine charged to the room. I photographed everything and put it back. The next morning, Patricia filed a motion for emergency discovery. It was a legal maneuver that forced Ryan's company to preserve all relevant records, including security footage, pending the outcome of the divorce proceedings. Ryan didn't know about it yet. The motion was sealed, to be served after the evidence was secured. By the time he found out, it would be too late. I waited. I cooked dinner, helped with homework, read bedtime stories. I kissed Ryan goodnight and listened to him snore. And I counted the days until everything changed. The papers were served on a Tuesday. Ryan came home at 7 p.m., earlier than usual, his face pale and tight. He walked into the kitchen where I was making dinner, the kids watching TV in the living room, and he held up a thick envelope. "What is this?" he asked, his voice strained. I looked at him calmly. "I think you know what it is." He stared at me like he'd never seen me before. In a way, he hadn't. Not really. Not the real me. "You filed for divorce." He said it like an accusation, like I'd committed a crime. "You're taking my kids, my money, after everything I've given you." I turned off the stove and faced him. "Everything you've given me. Ryan, I've given you 10 years. I've given you 3 children. I've given up my career, my independence, my identity, so you could build yours. And while I was doing that, you were in New York with Chelsea. You were buying her jewelry with our money. You were telling her you'd leave me when the stock vested." His face went white. "How do you know about Chelsea?" "I know everything. I know about the Cayman account. I know about the Delaware LLC. I know about the transfers you thought I'd never notice. I know about the hotel in New York, the champagne, the King Suite. I know because I've been watching you for months, and I've been planning." He took a step toward me, his hand reaching out like he might grab me. I didn't flinch. "Lauren, listen. It was a mistake. A stupid, meaningless mistake. She doesn't mean anything. You're my wife. You're the mother of my children. We can work this out." I laughed. It was a small, bitter sound. "Work it out, Ryan. I don't want to work it out. I want you out of this house. I want you out of my life. And I want enough money to raise our children without ever needing you again." His face hardened. "You think you can take me? You, with no carniwa, no money, no lawyer who matters. I'll bury you. I'll take the kids. I'll leave you with nothing." I smiled. It was the first real smile I'd felt in months. "No, Ryan, you won't, because I have evidence. I have texts, receipts, photos, bank statements. I have a forensic accountant who's already traced your hidden accounts. I have a lawyer who specializes in men like you. And I have the security footage from your company lobby showing you and Chelsea leaving together on the nights you told me you were working late. You're not going to bury me. You're going to settle, and you're going to settle on my terms." He stared at me, his mouth open, his eyes wide. Behind him, I heard the soft padding of small feet. Maddie appeared in the kitchen doorway, her face curious. "Mom, Dad, is everything okay?" I knelt down and opened my arms. She came to me, and I held her close, my eyes on Ryan over her shoulder. "Everything's fine, sweetie," I said. "Daddy was just leaving." Ryan didn't move. He stood there frozen as his whole world crumbled around him, and I felt nothing. No pity, no regret, no lingering love. Just the cold, clean satisfaction of a plan executed perfectly. The next 6 months were war. Ryan hired the most expensive lawyers in the city, men in $1,000 suits, who looked at me like I was a housewife playing dress-up in a courtroom. They deposed me for hours, trying to trip me up, trying to make me look unstable, trying to paint me as a gold digger who had married Ryan for his money and then turned on him when he wouldn't give her more. But I had Patricia, and I had evidence. The forensic accountant found $2.3 million in hidden assets, accounts Ryan had opened in the Cayman Islands, shell companies he'd used to funnel money, stocks he'd transferred to Chelsea's name. The security footage from his company showed him leaving with Chelsea on at least a dozen nights when he'd claimed to be working late. Her Instagram provided dates and locations that matched his credit card statements. And the texts, the ones I'd photographed from his phone, laid out the affair in explicit detail. Ryan's lawyers tried to discredit me. They argued that I'd invaded his privacy, that the evidence was illegally obtained, that I was a vengeful wife manufacturing a case. But Patricia had anticipated every move. The texts were photographed, not stolen. The security footage was obtained through legal discovery. The Instagram posts were public. And the forensic accounting was based on records Ryan himself had filed with the IRS. The custody battle was the hardest. Ryan wanted the kids, not because he loved them, not because he wanted to raise them, but because he knew it would hurt me. He argued that I was unstable, that I had no income, no career, no way to support them. He argued that he could give them a better life, a bigger house, more opportunities. He painted me as a woman who had done nothing for 10 years, as if raising 3 children alone, while he traveled and cheated, counted for nothing. But the kids spoke for themselves. Maddie, at 9, told the court-appointed evaluator that her dad was never home, that he forgot her birthday last year, that he didn't know her teacher's name or her best friend's name or what she wanted to be when she grew up. Cole, at 7, said his dad yelled a lot and made mommy cry. Emma, at 5, just said she wanted to stay with me. The evaluator's report was damning. It recommended that I have primary custody with supervised visitation for Ryan until he completed parenting classes in anger management. Ryan's lawyers fought it, but the judge, a woman in her 60s with a no-nonsense expression, upheld the recommendation. By the time we reached the settlement negotiations, Ryan was exhausted. His legal fees were over $400,000. His reputation was in tatters. The story had leaked to a local news site, and his company's board was asking questions about his use of corporate funds. Chelsea had left him, tired of the scandal and the pressure. He was alone, broke, and facing the prospect of a trial that would expose everything. He settled. The terms were better than I'd hoped. The house, full custody, child support that would cover everything the kids needed, and a lump sum payment that would let me go back to school, start a career, build a life of my own. He kept his company stock, but he had to buy me out at fair market value. He kept his retirement accounts, but I got half. He kept his freedom, but he lost his family. I signed the papers at Patricia's office on a gray January afternoon. When it was done, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the steering wheel. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel happy. I felt empty, hollowed out, like I'd been through a war and survived, but lost something I couldn't name. Then my phone rang. It was the school, reminding me about parent-teacher conferences. I started the car, drove to pick up the kids, and went home to make dinner. It's been 2 years now. I live in the same house, the one with the circular driveway and the kitchen island big enough to feed a small army. But it's different now. It's mine. I paid off the mortgage with part of the settlement, and the rest is invested, growing slowly, a safety net I built myself. I went back to school. I'm finishing my degree in accounting, the one I started before I met Ryan, before I got pregnant with Maddie, before I became invisible. I work part-time at a small firm doing bookkeeping for local businesses. It's not glamorous. It doesn't pay millions, but it's mine. Every dollar I earn is a dollar I earned myself, with my own hands, my own brain, my own effort. The kids are doing well. Maddie is 11 now, smart and sharp, with her father's ambition but none of his cruelty. She talks about becoming a lawyer, fighting for women like me. Cole is 9, sweet and sensitive, the one who still crawls into my bed after nightmares. Emma is 7, fierce and funny, the one who told her father during a supervised visit that she didn't want to see him anymore because you hurt mommy. Ryan tried to fight that too. He lost. I don't hate him anymore. That's the strangest part. The rage that burned so bright for so long has faded to something quieter, something like indifference. He's a footnote in my story now, a chapter I closed. He sees the kids every other weekend, under supervision, in a neutral location. He's remarried, some new woman, younger than Chelsea, probably already tired of his lies. I wish them nothing. Not happiness, not misery, just nothing. Last week I found the earring again, the one that started it all. It was in a box of old things, mixed in with receipts and photographs and memories I didn't need anymore. I held it in my palm, remembering the night I found it, the way my world had cracked open. I thought about the woman I'd been then, scared and invisible, and the woman I'd become. Then I dropped the earring in the trash and went back to my life. The kids came home from school an hour later. Maddie had a project due, Cole needed help with math, Emma had lost her favorite stuffed animal somewhere in the house. I made snacks, answered questions, searched under beds, and listened to stories about teachers and friends and the small dramas of childhood. It was chaos, as always. It was exhausting, as always. It was mine, as always. That night, after they were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and looked at my bank account. The numbers were healthy. The future was uncertain but possible. I thought about the plan I'd made, the months of waiting and watching, the fight I'd won. I didn't feel proud exactly. I felt something quieter. Relief. The knowledge that I would never be invisible again, that my children would never see me as background, that I had drawn a line and I had held it. I closed the laptop and went to bed. The house was quiet, the kids were safe, and for the first time in years, I slept without dreaming.